Hi everyone, Corey here from Tales from a Polk County Girl, and in this video, it's going to be a book review video. I'm going to talk to you about Clara's Kitchen by Clara. I have an Italian heritage, and I cannot pronounce her last name. Cannucciari. I probably just completely butchered that, but I'll put the title of the book and her name down in the description if you want to look it up. And what it is, it's wisdom, memories, and recipes from the Great Depression. So, I've always been fascinated. Lately I've been fascinated with food history and why do we eat what we eat. And when I watched this documentary called The Supersizers Go, and you can find bits of it on Netflix. I think it's on Hulu streaming. It's hilarious. I totally recommend it. And it goes through different cuisines and how we ate as a people during different time periods, like ancient Rome, the French Revolution, Victorian England, England during World War II. Which to me was fascinating because my husband, father, and my father-in-law all have a vast knowledge of World War II. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know a lot about World War II. For the longest time, I honestly mixed up World War I and World War II. Public educational system at its finest. So I'm like, okay, I want to learn about World War I and World War II, but from a point of view that I'm interested in. And then, the Supersizers Go came on, the episode about wartime in England, the food rationing during World War II, which coincided. There is a point to this, I promise, and then I'll get back to this. And then when we were in England, one of my friends, actually the couple that married us, she had a cookbook called Victory Cookbook. I now have a copy of it, and it's all about wartime recipes and how they dealt with rationing and what food could be made during that time. Well, rationing in the U.S. during World War II was not as severe as it was in England. It really wasn't, because we have a lot more land. We had more ability to, we didn't have to slaughter most of our livestock because it was too expensive to feed them. We still had our issues, but we did not have the rationing that England did. But at the same time, we also had the Great Depression. And in this book, Clara talks about what it was like to grow up during the Depression with immigrant parents who both came over from Italy. They didn't come over together. They came over separate, then married here. And that's important. I point that out for a reason. I'll explain in a second. And then, so she grew up eating a lot of as close to Italian food as she could, as her mother could make, with what they could grow and get a hold of here in the U.S. during the Depression. And I really enjoyed this book, and it made me think in a way of my great-grandmother. Her parents came over from Italy separately and then met here. That's why I said it was important. And then based on math, though, she didn't grow up during the Depression. She was married and had started having a family around the time of the Depression, if I'm remembering how old my grandfather is, because he's in his 80s. Yeah, he's in his mid-80s, so that puts him, yeah. So, I don't know, I had that, Italian connection, and I didn't really know my great-grandmother. She died a month after I was born. And it was just a really nice book. I mean, some of the stuff I read and I go, ew, I don't want to eat that. And then I see the recipe of dandelion salad. 5 cups of dandelion leaves cleaned, olive oil, juice of 1 lemon, salt and pepper. And you just wash the dandelion greens and you coat them with oil, salt and pepper, and lemon juice, and you eat it, and it's a salad. And I know over here, pretty much over here in America, if you tell somebody you're going to eat dandelion greens, they think you're starving. Well, during the Depression, people were starving. And I used to think, and probably, trying to do math in my head. 9 years ago, I would have thought that was insane too. But back in England, my first trip over to England in 2009, we stayed with some other friends, and John asked us, hey, do you want a salad with dinner? Yeah, sounds great. He handed me a bowl and said, all right, go outside and pick it. That was a first for me. I love telling the story too. And no joke, I'm going out there and I'm looking around going, and they had like real vegetables and everything, but they also had dandelion greens growing in there with full dandelions that hadn't gone to the white puffs yet. And so he's picking some of those and he's like, you've never had a dandelion pod, have you? I'm like, no. And so he plucks it. I mean, seriously, the stuff that we consider weeds that I would pull out of my flower beds. Hell, I can make a salad out of that. I'm going to have to remember this. So it's stuff like that. I mean, it's so interesting when you read a book about a different time and how this was real. This was her life and how she still eats like this. I mean, this book was published in copyright 2009. So this book is 8 years old. At the time this was put together by Clara and her grandson, she was in her, I want to say late 80s, possibly early 90s when this book came out. So I'm not going to make any assumptions on whether or not she's still alive. So it's just really interesting to read that, oh, this wasn't just some weird thing that John made me eat. And by the way, a dandelion pod tastes like a mouthful of black pepper. Just my opinion, but it's a fact. So I just really enjoyed this book. It had like kind of a feel-good feeling towards it, and yeah, I'm gonna give it to my mom because my mom spent more time with Grandma Lely than I did, obviously. And see if anything in here triggers something with her, like maybe she'll remember something. I'm also going to message my cousin Corey. Yes, I do have a cousin named Corey. It turns out we were both named after Grandma Lily, and we didn't know it. When she came to America, they heard her name wrong and they wrote it down wrong, so it looks like it's Carmela. So, according to the United States government, she's Carmela. The way her name is pronounced in Italian sounds a lot like Corianne or Coriana. My cousin is Corinne, Corinne. And I am Corianne, Cori space Ann. And we didn't find this out actually until a few years ago when I contacted Corey, the other Corey, and asked her to send me a copy, or ask for a copy of this genealogy report that she had done. Like, she went to Italy and like traced it back, and it was really cool. And she did, and I'm going through it, and I see what our grandmother's name was, and I show Mom, and my mom's like, that's why she was so happy that I named you Corianne. Like, she never really said that her name wasn't Carmela, but I mean, it's, like I said, it's a feel-good book. I mean, if you have a grandmother that grew up during this time, or bottom line, I recommend the book. It's a quick read. I mean, look how thick it is. It does have recipes, as some of them are interesting, like Swiss chard and garlic, delicious dandelions, how to make dandelions delicious. That's more, cooked dandelion salad, the same thing you just had, except you cook the dandelion greens down before you salt, pepper, juice, and oil them. So it's interesting. It's very interesting, just what they did to survive back during the Depression, because everything that they ate, 90% of it was either grown in their garden in the backyard, or they foraged for it. So yeah, I mean, it's real. So I've talked long enough. Totally recommend the book. I hope you enjoyed my little tangent about where my name came from, my family history. I expected to go off like that, but I kind of hoped I wouldn't. But I'm going to leave it in, because that's what you guys get from me. You get real. This is real. So yeah. Clara's Kitchen by Clara. Italian last name that I will butcher if I try to pronounce it. But it will be in the comments. It will be in the description below, okay? Have a nice day, everybody. Bye.